text message from Michelle. Food is ready, so we're gonna make this quick. Hey, so I'll just cut right into it. I sat down with my dad and his brother Dan, and I just like to make a little bit of a docu-series, if you will, about my family and certain individuals growing up and just basic questions just to get to know their life. That's all I'll leave it at. We'll dive right in. All right, boys. We're recording.
Okay.
So yeah.
We're drinking.
You're drinking. What are you drinking today?
This is a, what is it?
It's a Cato German-style lager from Mankato Brewery.
Okay.
It's kind of a local amber ale kind of a thing. German-style lager, I guess. I guess it's a lager, not an ale.
I'm an IPA guy. Typically.
I know. You suffer through this.
Yes.
All right. So my plan here today is I just kind of want to, get a little history. I've been getting history from other members of my family, and I'm just curious to know. I don't know. Just dive into what you remember. So I guess I'm curious to know, like, if you want to start in Salem, just kind of what were things like. I don't know if you can even remember, elementary stuff, or is that pushing it, or?
Well, we moved to Salem in 1967, 66, 67.
Because I was only a year old. I was born in 66.
Yeah.
You were born in 62.
So you guys are
moved
4 years apart then?
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we moved to Salem just before I went to kindergarten.
Okay.
So whenever that
From where?
time frame was. Sioux City.
Okay, that's
So
I knew that.
your great-grandpa Robinson lived on Morningside Avenue in Sioux City.
And we lived across the alley.
Okay.
On the second floor of an apartment.
Which I don't remember, of course.
Probably not.
You remember it at all?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Cool.
Just a few little
I remember
snippets.
we have a black and white photo. And it was Greg and I and Dad. And that black and white photo was taken outside of Grandpa Robinson's garage in Sioux City. And I still have it. Well, you have a copy of it. I have a copy of it. I think I was 1 and he was 5.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a cool black and white print.
And we used to go back twice a year.
Yeah, twice a year. Memorial Day and Christmas.
Yeah, always at Christmas and sometime during the summertime,
Sometime
whether
during the
Memorial Day or whatever. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. Okay.
So that was
so we moved and we lived with Grandma Robinson's folks for a short amount of time. I remember because I slept with in Bill's room.
Nelson's.
Yep, Nelson's,
yeah.
and in their house it is now the parsonage for the Lutheran Church.
Oh, okay.
That
Yep.
house. So it's stretching way back.
Is this the old house that I know?
No. I don't think
No,
you know.
this house.
Do you know where the church is down the street from Grandma? There's
She
like
lives
3
now.
blocks to the west. That church, just on the north side of the church, there's a bigger house.
Big old gray house, 2-story house.
Okay.
And that's the house they lived in. That's the house that Grandma was raised in. And they built, my Grandpa Ward, he was a contractor amongst a number of other things that he did. And he built the house that's across the street from the school. One kind of it's where you learned to walk. Your first steps were taken at that house.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, that once Grandma Hattie lived there.
Right.
So that would have been our grandma's mother. So our great grandma Hattie. And she
Maiden name was Knox.
Knox. Yeah, she died in 1968, I think.
Okay.
Something like a long time ago. Anyway, and then they moved to that house, sold the house, and became the parsonage to the Lutheran Church. So anyway, we stayed there for a short amount of time. It was kind of fun living there for me. It was just a kid, 2-story house. You played hide and seek with all these other people, Bill was 8 years older than I was, so that was kind of fun. So anyway, and then we moved over to the west side of town.
Okay.
And they rented a house there. That's the house we lived in for a year when I went to kindergarten.
Okay.
So we'd come back. I had to come across town and go to Salem, so not very far. But
All the way across.
yeah. 6 blocks or whatever it was. So we lived in that house for a year, and it was funny. They had one of those grates in the floor because that was a coal furnace. So Dad would have to go down and scoop coal or corn cobs or whatever it was into it and heated it up.
Corn cobs?
Yeah, and that's where the washing machine was down there. So Grandma would have to go down and wash clothes. And so anyway, there was just this great big floor grate, and so we lived on the main floor, and it was a 2-story house, but we couldn't. The 2 bedrooms that were upstairs were always locked. We couldn't go in them.
I don't remember any of this.
And because the person that owned the house must have stored their crap in it. And the only other thing that was on the second floor was the bathroom. So you had to go upstairs to use the bathroom. The only thing you could use was the bathroom on the second floor. You couldn't use the bedroom. So there was a main bedroom downstairs and kind of a little spot off to the side, and that's where we slept. So anyway, that's where we were for a year.
Okay.
And I have couple memories from that. One was a 4th of July when Grandpa Ward would come over and we'd throw firecrackers or whatever it was. He'd sit because he smoked, so he could because there was a burn barrel in the back, you throw that stuff around, and then Santa Claus came at Christmas. Since it's Christmas time, that memory is there. He brought me a sled.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, he brought me a sled.
That's exciting.
Santa came to the door, scared the crap out of me. I remember that. And I think it was Don Kinsley.
Was it Don Kinsley?
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So anyway.
And then we moved across town then.
Then we moved across town to the house that they lived in.
Wait, so you lived in 3 houses then in Salem?
Yeah.
Damn.
But not,
Sort of.
Within
yeah,
years.
well, not very long
Right.
with Grandpa and Grandma, and then a year in that other one, and then we lived in the other one, and they moved in there. 68? 67, 68? It was a terrible winter, yeah. We got all kinds of snow.
That was the winter
I
of
mean, it was.
68, 69.
So we would, Dad worked over at Paramount Pipe Plant, which is in Spencer. So it was 10, 11 miles, so he drove over there every day, and that was, Grandpa owned it. So he had worked at the Caterpillar plant in Sioux City, and then Grandpa wanted him to come up and run Paramount, manage the plant, and that's why we moved to Salem.
Okay.
So we moved in Salem, and then he would drive over every day. So in the wintertime, that particular winter, we went over, and they parked all of the trucks outside. It was kind of a small operation, but they had a bunch of big trucks, and all you could see out of the top of the snow when you walked up there were the lights, those amber lights that used to be on
top of the hood?
back of those
really?
those 1950 whatever trucks. They were completely covered in snow.
Holy cow.
It was an amazing amount of snow. It was great when you were a kid.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, it was
especially
wonderful.
getting that sled.
Yeah, I had my new sled. But it had the runners on it, so if the snow was too deep,
Yeah,
you
you
just
don't.
kind of went. Anyway.
All right.
So we lived in that house, and we had Mom and Dad rented out the upstairs, and then there was a couple trailers parked next to the house. So John and Ruth Lund.
Yep.
John was the band director in town. Ruth was the nurse. And when I was a little kid, John would come home. Of course, this was during the space shots, or
the Apollo.
Apollo.
Oh.
When we went to the moon.
So I was probably 3, 4 when things started going, and then but John would go to the school every day. But the school had this great big chimney stack.
Okay.
Well, every day in my mind, he said he went to the moon. So every day he would blast off to the moon and come back. And I
He
didn't
was
know anything
quite
different.
the storyteller.
He was a storyteller.
Sure.
So I'd be sitting on the front steps, and he'd come home from school, and John, how was your trip to the moon today?
That's kind of cool. I didn't realize how big the moon thing was.
Oh,
You're
it was-
using that as like a fundamental
that
moment
was
in time.
It's like 9/11.
Really?
Like
big?
first landing on the moon was like 9/11. It was something.
Okay.
Everybody
Something you
was
remember.
watching. Everybody was like, "Where were you?
Where were you when it happened?
When they
When they
we
landed
were
on
in.
the moon.
I think we were in school. Well, I was in school.
Yeah, I was
you were not.
3. I think.
So,
Sorry.
but so anyway, that's
But one other thing about winter, what was always fun. So there was this house next door to, of course, out in front of the house was nothing but old trees that were planted in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and there was groves of trees and a little old sidewalk that ran through this. And we have well, your dad's got a picture of, I think you've seen it, what the house looked like with these groves of trees when it was really.
yeah. It was built back in 1882 or in
Yeah.
the 80s.
The house
18
itself?
The house was.
Yeah,
Okay,
and so,
yeah.
There were these
so
little sticks sticking out of the ground.
Yeah.
You know, it was, so we have. I always thought that picture was cool. And then there was this next to that. Well, it was Dad worked over by the rock quarry in Spencer, but there was this rock wall or the quarry wall. It was only about as high as this table.
Okay.
But when there's a lot of snow, we'd run and jump off this wall. The wall's not very big when you're a kid. We'd jump into the snowbanks. It was like the thing for me. It was like that was so much fun as a kid.
yeah, I've told this story to your mom lots of times of the big wall. But like that was the thing, tell her about. And then so one day we went. She wanted to see it, and so we walked over there, and she's like, "It's like 2.5 feet tall." I said, "Yeah, but when you're a kid, that
huge.
seems huge.
Wall.
You could like step up to it now,
Well,
Yeah, you're probably right. It was probably 3 feet.
And having a big brother, one other thing was fun is in town the roads would ice over. When they ice over, it was about done. So I remember as a kid, of course, I had the better end of it because I was smaller. So Greg would pull me around on a sled on the street, and we'd have all
All
this fun on the
nice.
streets and stuff.
Yeah, we had those disc sleds.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
they're like
Yeah.
well, like a flying like a saucer.
yeah.
And they were metal. I think today they're plastic,
Yeah.
but back in the day they were
they're
metal.
metal, yeah.
And so you could just go flying down those. I mean, when we got a little older, we'd hook them up behind a car or a snowmobile, and you'd be going down the street, and the sparks would fly up because when you hit a dry patch, because there was metal. So I'm sure that was like about as dangerous as it could be. You're right, about 6 feet behind the car, and they stop. Never thought of that at the time.
That's okay. You survived. You had fun.
So that was always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we had, so what was the Dutch elm disease came through like in the mid 70s.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
terrible. So all these trees, big elm trees around town, all this bug or whatever got into the trees, and all these trees were dying. So we ended up, I think Dad cut down like 20 trees eventually.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
They were these
really?
huge trees, and they were as big around as this table, some of them, and really tall, and they were on the boulevard, between the sidewalk and the street.
Okay. Yeah.
And so there were whole bunches of those, and we had them all around the house.
Yeah.
And he had to cut all those down. And,
Really?
oh yeah, it was quite the project.
Number of years. I
Yeah.
don't know how many years.
I don't know how he ever did it. He did most of it himself. He'd cut them down, and then you had those great big stumps.
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
have to have.
You gotta grind 'em
you had
out
to-
or something?
You had to try to get. Well, just to cut it into pieces that you could put onto the truck. And then, I don't know, you probably hauled it over to the dump and threw it in the quarry or something. Or hauled it over to, out to the dump or over to the quarry, one or the
Crazy
other.
to think that just a disease could come through and wipe it out.
Yeah, all those trees that Dan was talking about on the sidewalk that led up to the house, somebody bought that lot. Used to be part of the house.
Yep.
And they got separated over time because it had a big horseshoe driveway in front of it, because it's the highest house in Salem.
Okay.
Salem's relatively flat,
Right.
but there's just a little bit of an elevation there, and that house is on the highest point in Salem. And so, because it's probably a 5-foot hill coming up the driveway.
Oh, from the street level?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, you have that little bit of hill, which we always played with as kids, and people always get stuck coming up our driveway or whatever, because of ice. But anyway, all those trees and everything that finally got sold, and somebody wanted to build a house there.
Yeah.
When we were kids, and so they tore all those out. I remember when they tore that out because they just knocked them over. So they had a big front end loader came in,
Right.
and they knocked all the trees over, and so you had this great area to play with if you're a kid, because all these trees got pulled over and all those great big root balls are behind you and big holes, and so you could.
Around
All the kids come over and we'd have a great time for that couple of weeks while they were
Yeah,
tearing
clean
it all up.
Yeah.
And then they built a house there, and now the Roths live there, but it's not anywhere near the same as. You used to look out and you could see the school. Now their house is there, but you had all that area to play with. I mean, you could play baseball, you could,
Oh yeah.
play tag, you could play whatever you wanted to because you had that huge lot.
Yeah.
And we'd cut across it to Grandpa Grandma's. And so you come out the front door and, you could go down to the street and all the way around the block and then go over to Grandpa and Grandma's because they lived a block away. And it's because we went over there all the time. Well, we didn't. Why would you do that? You just cut through that empty lot.
Right.
On our bikes or walk.
On our bikes or walk. And so there was a path about this wide, about 18 inches wide.
Permanent path.
A permanent path. And the people that owned that lot, they'd get so mad at us because and then they planted these little stick trees right along the boundary after they built, or they were getting ready to build that house. So they planted these little saplings, And so we'd go running by them and hurdle the trees or whatever, and knock them over. And they
didn't last very long.
They didn't last very long. They weren't very happy with us. But that's.
Now, we used to drive when Dad worked at the pipe plant, Paramount.
Yeah.
We'd go over there. We were younger, and we'd I don't know. I just enjoyed going over there because you get to go over either in the summer or on a Saturday or
Sure.
something, and he'd be doing some stuff. You got to help out or ride in the dump truck, or Greg eventually worked over there, so it was just a lot of fun.
When we were kids, basically they made septic tanks and cisterns for farmers, people who live out in rural areas, and they made concrete pipe, culverts is what they were called.
Yeah.
And so they're all about 5 feet long, and so some of them are 12 inches in diameter all the way up to 50 inches in diameter. And so they always would stack them in rows. So then they'd roll them up to each other, and then they'd have a forklift and they put them like bales of hay.
Okay, yeah.
And so it was great as a kid because you'd get on top and you'd run along the top of them. Jump from one little pipe to the next and just carry on. And always, probably at least once a month, I don't know if Steve's that often, maybe we didn't go there that often, but it just seemed like it was that frequently. You'd end up falling off.
Yeah.
Either Dan or I would fall off those and you'd bump your head and you'd end up with a big old knot on your head or
Concrete.
scrape or what. And but that's okay because the antidote to that is you put a cold compress on it. Well, the cold compress that's over there was always a bottle of pop.
Bottle of pop.
And so it was root beer or orange or black cherry. There was never this Coke or Pepsi at the time. It was all some
flavored
kind
pop.
Yeah, it was those, I don't know, off-brands or whatever they had at the time. And so you'd take this bottle of pop, like I got the can of beer here, and you put it on your head. And, is that better? Oh yeah, that's much better. You could drink it then. So
That was
but that was always fun. So, but yeah, we had a lot of time, a lot of fun running around over there.
And if it was summertime, we were always, you go to the pool, or you're working. When you got older, you worked all the time. Or I remember playing baseball in the summertime. It was hot, always hot, and playing baseball. I don't know why.
Did you play baseball through high school?
No, I think it was when I was through 5th or 6th grade. I think is all for me. You played more than that, didn't you?
No, I think maybe 5th or 6th grade
Okay.
at most.
But that was always fun.
Yeah, I mean, you'd go and you'd play. I liked to catch. I was a catcher. I was terrible. I was not good at baseball.
What did you guys play in high school? What kind of sports did you play?
In high school?
Yeah.
In high school, I played football.
Okay.
I played some basketball. I wasn't that good though. But that we worked.
Yeah, we both.
we both worked down at the grocery store.
Yeah,
he started before I did.
Started between 8th grade and freshman,
Okay.
and then worked the whole 4 years.
Yeah.
And then Dan jumped in because he's 4 years younger than me. So between, I think, the same time, right?
Yeah.
Between 8th grade and
freshman.
So
But
How much did you work?
well, during the week, probably 15 hours, and then
15 to
Sat
20.
20. But
Oh,
during
yeah.
the summer, you'd work 50, 55 some weeks. I always thought that was fun because you always got time and a half after 40 hours.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, before that, all I remember as a little kid, to earn money, I think I got a quarter allowance a week. But on Saturdays, you'd go down and go in the alleys. And Greg taught me
Oh,
this.
yeah, this was the funnest thing. We'd go pop bottle hunting.
Pop bottle hunting.
Hot bottle hunting.
Well, because a pop bottle was worth a dime. A glass bottle like this was worth a dime.
Okay.
But then a long neck beer bottle was worth a nickel. Okay. So we weren't ever allowed to go into the bar. So you'd turn in your pop bottles at the grocery store when you were a kid. But to turn in a long neck beer bottle, you had to go into the bar to get your nickel. So if you got one or two bottles on a Saturday, it was probably a normal Saturday morning. So that was before, we were probably, I don't know,
You turn those in?
6, 7, 8. Oh, that's how.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
they used to
what
have
we did that
returnable
all the time.
bottles. all
Every
the time.
Saturday, I bet we went pop
Oh,
bottle
yeah.
hunting. And if you got a quart bottle, that was worth more.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, that's when they had those quart glass bottles.
Quart glass
So they
bottles.
were worth a little more, but
But that was your spending money because if you got 10 cents, well, a piece of candy was a penny. So
or a pack of gum. A
Priorities.
pack of gum was a nickel or a dime.
yeah, but you did pretty good if you got a bottle.
Right.
2 was a bonus.
Did it have to be
know.
in perfect condition?
No, they just had
they
not broken. Because they'd have to clean them
Oh, they
and
wanna
refill
reuse
them.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it just goes back to wherever Pepsi and Coke, that was the primary one, 7-Up,
Yeah.
were the primary ones, and you take them down to Don's, or you can take them over to Kobeck's Market.
Colbeck's, yeah. Do that.
So,
Yeah, there were 2 grocery stores in town for a while.
yeah, long time. We worked at Don's.
That's the one I know.
Yeah, Jack and Jill. I think it's
Trading Post,
Trading
whatever you
Post.
wanna call it.
They cashed all the checks.
But we had to do, you had to do everything. So we checked, we stocked shelves, we unloaded trucks,
Yeah, I like to unload
cleaned the
trucks.
meat department.
Yeah, I hated that job.
You took your paper sack down to the bank and got the change order. I did.
Actually, the worst job in that place was sorting potatoes.
That was bad, but also was sweeping the gutters out in the street.
That was just a
Or
pain.
cleaning the meat department.
Yeah.
That was bad too.
Yeah, so every night, this is what, I mean, you'd never do this now, but Don was only open till 6,
Okay.
and he was
Never on Sunday.
Never on Sunday, and he was fastidious about the cleanliness. And we literally went out and swept the gutters every night. So you cleaned all of the sidewalks and then swept the gutters, and
All the
so
dust and stuff and dirt.
it was
and
clean
stuff.
for the next day. So
Well, I mean,
that was a
that's good.
boring job, but the sorting the potatoes was a terrible job
Yeah,
in
Fifth's
my
would get
mind,
some bad ones.
because they'd come in 100-pound bags, and you dump them into this wooden box, and then you sort them into 10-pound bags of paper bags. And every once in the summertime, especially, they'd get
All
rotten.
right. Yeah.
And it would just stink. You put your hand down there, and you'd come up with this mushy. Oh,
And you couldn't get, you tried to wash your hand
couldn't.
time and time again. It wouldn't.
Yeah, you couldn't come clean.
couldn't do that.
So yeah, the meat department was basically when you had to clean for when they ground beef.
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah.
was a big grinder machine, so you'd take that, or the inside of the saw.
And you had to take the saw apart, the blade, and all the components, wipe it out,
Oh, really?
scrub it out, and then you
You
had
have all that
tables.
meat dust in there. It was just
Meat dust.
yeah, just like
Yeah.
sawdust, only it was meat because it was a bandsaw.
I suppose.
And
just
you know, he's
stuff-
cutting
Did you
it.
cut it or?
I did do a little bit of cutting for him, but usually I was.
Usually we did like ground the hamburger,
Sure.
Yeah,
and
we
wrap stuff, and a lot of cleaning. I mean, it was clean everything. You clean meat department, you clean the floors, you clean the toilets, you, like I said, unloaded the trucks, you
Yeah.
stocked the
Guys
shelves.
were everything.
Yeah, but it was good. I mean, at the time we probably didn't. I appreciate a lot more later being in the grocery business than I ever did actually when I was working there.
Yeah.
But
I loved it when I started. When I started there, I was working at the Paramount Pipe Plant. I was, in 8th grade, so I was cutting weeds and doing that kind of stuff, and I was making $1 an hour,
Nice.
which, was good money.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not very. It didn't feel very rewarding. Worked 1 hour, got $1. So the minimum wage when I started working at Don's was $1.87.
oh my gosh,
So I'm like working an
sudden.
hour and getting almost $2, you know? It's like, that was feeling like I was way uptown then. So I was making the money then. So, but later, the last couple of years is when I would go to the store Tuesdays. Was it Tuesdays and Fridays? Is that when the delivery was? Tuesdays and Thursdays?
Yeah, when unloaded trucks in the morning.
Yeah, so you'd get there you have to be there
5:30?
5:30 in the morning before school and unload truck. So the truck would come from Nash Vinch in Sioux Falls, and they'd back in, and guy'd jump in the back of his truck, and you hook the
rails up.
The rails up, the conveyor thing, you know, the little rollers, and he'd start flinging down the thing. The boxes would just come, and you'd stack them all over. Yeah. So, but I thought that was fun. You're the only one there. Right. And then he would come, and then the bread guy would come, and so you'd shoot the shit with the bread guy or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you know, it was kind of a sense of independence. You know, you're the only one there.
Yeah.
It's not like
opening up and working it. And
yeah. That's cool. Yeah, responsible.
That's good.
Well, okay. Moving forward, I guess then. So you guys were very worker active, I would say, during high school, from what I can tell. Where did you go to college? I know you guys went to NSU, but why?
I went because he went there.
Okay.
And I thought I wanted to be an accountant.
Oh, did you really?
I didn't, and I found out after a year and a half that wasn't for me. So, why don't you start?
Well, I went there. I knew that I wanted to be in business. I took a couple of business classes in high school from Mr. Johnson, and I thought he was a great teacher, and it was the most interesting classes that I took, and it was accounting. He taught accounting. He taught some business class. He took typing. We actually took typing back in, and you didn't learn it until high school.
Yeah.
So all this keyboarding stuff that you learn now,
we
learned it on a typewriter.
That's the worst.
In high school. So anyway, Lyle did a great. I thought he instilled that. That was interesting. That classwork. So I knew that I wanted to go there. So I knew from our standpoint, we probably needed to stay in state. So it was either Vermilion or Northern. You know, you go to your guidance counselor and they tell you where you go to business school. Well, you can go to Aberdeen or you can go to Vermilion. So we toured both of them, and a lot of the people in my class wanted to go and did go to Vermilion. Mm-hmm. And I kind of wanted to do something different. And I wanted to, there's some of the people that were going to Vermilion. I'm like, I need to move along. I don't need to necessarily spend any more time with these characters. So I went to Aberdeen and decided that's where I wanted to go. It was a smaller school. Wasn't necessarily looking for a larger school or a smaller school. I just wanted something different. Mm-hmm. And it was, Vermilion's only, an hour and 20 minutes at most from Salem. Aberdeen's 3 hours away, so it's a little bit further away. It's not a long ways away, but 3 hours, so kind of have a little bit more distance. I wanted to be a little more independent, so went there.
Mm-hmm. So you just pursued.
I just took a lot of business classes, a lot of accounting classes. I hated science, hard sciences, like biology and chemistry. I was lousy at chemistry. It was like the worst grades in high school that I got were in those classes. So I avoided those and so I ended up in Northern. All my sciences had to take one biology class that you couldn't get out of. The rest of them were all sociology classes or psychology classes.
Is yours the same, or did you have like a science
I didn't have a sense of really what I wanted to do.
Oh, sure.
And probably, I knew after I took the second year of accounting that I didn't want to do accounting, but I wanted to do something in business. Okay. And economics caught my thing. That was I just loved it. There's a teacher there that I just.
So you were up in and you were kind of.
I was doing business classes. Yeah. But that kind of caught my eye. So I kind of.
What econ teacher did you have?
Newman. Hiller Newman, a young guy.
Yeah. Okay.
So I had him for that, and I had him for stats classes and stuff. So.
My teachers were all old. It's Dr. Gaynock.
Gaynock.
Or Dr. I can't even
You had Paul Everson, though.
I had Paul Everson. He was the youngest guy. He taught accounting.
Dr. Con. Yeah, he was a
Yeah.
good teacher.
Walsh, Mike Walsh. He was a younger guy too, I guess. But my advisor was an old guy. I can't even remember his name anymore. And most of mine were old, but they were in the military and they went back to school, or they had some kind of other career and they came back to teaching. So they had a lot of practical knowledge that they.
Which was good. I
thought it was great. I thought it really helped
just
me.
Teaching.
Yeah, they really helped me. I thought after I got done with school,
Yeah.
and we were able to. I think all the sociology and psychology classes really helped me a lot. To being in management, because dealing with people all the time. Nobody gave a crap about your chemistry. They all cared about how are you feeling today?
What I thought was cool is that I work in the grocery store. I went in after college. I went into the grocery business.
Right.
But I always thought it was really cool because your dad, he was in high school. He was on the newspaper staff. What, 4 years or 3 years?
Yeah, 4 years.
Oh, really?
Which really I thought was cool because, of course, he went to college. But then a couple years after, 2 years after you graduated college, you came back to the newspaper business, or 3 years. I don't know how many years it was. But.
Yeah, I was 2.5 years down in Kansas working for the IRS. And then I came up and worked a year and a half at most at Western Surety. And
then you started at
the paper,
yeah.
88.
I always thought that was cool because it all kind of, came full circle. So I went the grocery business and he went the newspaper business. But he did it in business,
Yeah.
So that was really cool, I thought.
I guess I've been kind of curious too. I know with me in pharmacy, like I knew I wanted to do pharmacy, but once I graduated, there were so many different versions of pharmacy that you can do. I imagine that's very similar to you did business, and then all of a sudden you're done, and you've got this world to look. How did you choose the IRS initially? How did you know grocery? Was it just someone?
I just fell into a job, honestly.
Really? So
yeah, there was like 2 companies that came on campus for interviews, and barely any companies ever came on campus for interviews.
Right.
So I was going to have this degree, but there wasn't anything in college. Honestly, there wasn't anybody to guide you to say, hey, this is the type of jobs you need to apply for. Where do you need to apply? There was none of that. You were kind of on your own. There was no career counseling in college. I'll be honest with you. There was, at least I'm aware. And so Nash Finch came on campus like in April, and 3 weeks before I graduated, I had a job. Yeah, I was just kind of
okay.
They came on campus and.
So so have you've been in grocery then ever since college? Then?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
or to some extent doing something.
Right.
Yeah.
I've never really known what you do.
Oh,
What do you do?
For,
what did you do to get to
for
where
the
you
first
do?
3 years, I was either I did a store training, or I was an assistant manager. So I started in Aberdeen and moved to Rapid City. I was assistant manager at Prairie Market, and then I was thinking, I worked in a grocery store for 4 or 5 years in high school,
Right.
and then I don't want to do this for this. So, and my manager was supportive, but the people above the line, some were supportive, some weren't.
Right. Okay.
But we had a warehouse out in Rapid City, and they had these people called buyers. So the assistant managers of the stores in town would go over there, and every week we put ad plans together with the buyers. And what's a buyer do? Well, they buy from the big companies like General Mills or places like that, and they fill the warehouse up, and the warehouses then ship the product to the stores. Well, that's kind of neat. I always like economics and things like that, and so I became a buyer for 3 years, and then I got an opportunity to go to Minneapolis, and we had a new computer system, and I had to travel, train all these buyers out in the field. So I did that for 3 years.
Okay.
And so I just kind of had some other opportunities that came up within the organization, and I started managing people in that. So I did that for quite a few years, and then I think I went from Nash Finch, and then I had a couple of career. When you get older, you make some mistakes and you make some good opportunities. And I did both. So I eventually Made some poor decisions, made some better decisions. I went over to this buffet chain called Old Country Buffet then. Worked there for 7 years, and I got laid off there. And then the guy that called on me from Swift out in Colorado said, "Hey, I think you'd be good for us." So then I went out in Colorado, and I'm pricing meat now, which is seems kind of weird, but I price pork. So different cuts of pork for grocery stores.
Are you still like? Are you buying and selling? Is that?
I'm kind of the middle guy. So sales would come to me and say, "Hey, so like we have a hog, right?
Right.
You break it down into different parts,
Okay.
and we have people responsible for merchandising those different parts of the animal.
Okay.
So sales will come to me and say, "Hey, we want to go to XYZ supermarket chain. We want to sell them pork ribs." So they'll come to me and say, "Well, what's the value of these ribs? What can I sell these ribs for?" So I will come up with a value of those ribs, and then we'll negotiate back and forth through sales.
Okay.
So I'm kind of the intermediary, but I'm starting point for if they want to merchandise ribs, then the sales would come to me. I'd give them a price, and then they would go sell it to that chain.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing.
So if he decides he doesn't want to do this and wants to get back in the grocery business, you got it in at Piggly Wiggly.
Piggly Wiggly.
I could
He
bag
prices
groceries, bag groceries, or say welcome to Walmart. It's been good though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. How about you? How did you get to the IRS?
Well,
Same thing?
Well, it was 1984 when I graduated, and the job market wasn't very strong.
Okay.
So it was like where...
Was it like a recession or something?
Yeah, it's kind of still coming out of that. So jobs were hard to find, and so I must have sent out I don't know how many applications all over the place. And the IRS actually had contacted the college and said, "Hey, there's jobs," and so okay, I'd be interested. And well, where would you be? Would you be interested anywhere? I don't care. I was kind of ready for a challenge, so I can go just about anywhere. And they said, "Okay, well, how about Kansas?" Okay, that doesn't sound terrible.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Well, we're at in Kansas. We got these spots in Salina, Hayes, Wichita, Garden City." I'm like, I picked them all. I'm like, I don't care. So I ended up in Hayes, Kansas, which is in western Kansas, population of 15,000. And so, I'm 22 years old, and I go out to Hayes, Kansas, and I show up, and I'm like, okay, where do people go to have fun or whatever? Like, well, what do you mean? Well, like, you're going to go out. He goes, well, people come here. Like, okay. Because in Kansas at the time, there's no bars. They have clubs. And so you had to be a member of the club to be able to go in it. And so you had to have these memberships, and there's memberships that, there wasn't like a membership where you could go to all of them. You just, there was
that one?
You go to this one, or you could go to this one, or that one. And well, I don't know, it was really a strange situation. So anyway, I did that for 2.5 years. How much time do you have? I have a lot of weird stories from going to the IRS.
Got 44 minutes left.
Oh, I tell you, one of the best stories was, so I spent a lot of time in Wichita for about 6 months doing training. The IRS does a really good job of training. It's boring as hell, but they train you everything in the whole code and everything. So I'm doing mostly farmers, ranchers, and oil and gas, because there's a big oil and gas boom in Kansas back in the early 80s. So now I'm auditing all these people who made a bunch of money, and they all spent it. Now the market's kind of down again. So none of them have any money. So every time I recalculated their taxes for them, they owed $2,000. They were never very happy to see me.
Yeah.
They were very unhappy to see me coming, and even less happy they were happy to see me leave, but they were unhappy with what I left them. So, but I went out to really little, so we're like 120 miles from the border, I think, I can't remember exactly, to the Colorado border.
Okay.
So I'm going out to Oakley, Kansas, I believe it was it's not even Oakley, it was a little town from Oakley, like 30 miles. And so I'm out there, and I'm auditing this lady, and she's she's retired by now. So she has basically a little bit of, just a little income and a little oil and gas income from probably some land that she inherited and whatnot. So anyway, I go there, and I knew this was going to be pretty easy. It's a Tuesday. I remember it's a Tuesday. I'll tell you why. So I get there at her house, and the first hour we spend, she drags out every picture of her and a president that she had, because she was the secretary for Bob Dole.
Really?
Yeah, so she's got all these presidents. She's bringing out, here's me and Gerald Ford, and here's me and Ronald Reagan at the time, or here's me and whoever, just she's bringing them all out. And so, okay, well, that's really cool, and then we go through all this stuff. And so I'm going through her tax return, and it got to be about 11:30, quarter to 12. And so it's getting to be about lunchtime. And so usually what happens is you go to the local cafe or whatever, and you don't have lunch with them. You have your own lunch. And so she goes, I said, well, is the local cafe open today? And she goes, oh no, it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. I said, oh, well, well, it's Senior Citizen Day. The senior citizen has like potluck every Tuesday. And so I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should go to Oakley or something. Right. And I'm like, well, that's a half hour there and a half hour back, and plus the time to eat. Right. And I'm trying to get home yet tonight. So she goes, oh, no, you're going to be my guest. I've already told everybody you're coming.
Oh, no.
And a cardinal rule is you never tell anybody when they're getting audited.
Right.
And you never tell anybody else that you're auditing that person. It's very private situation, So I'm like, okay, she's the one who's telling people I can't do anything about that. And so I walk in with her to the local senior center, and it's packed.
Oh, geez.
It's packed. It's Tuesday. Every old person in town is there. There's like 50 or 60 people in that room. And there's big, long buffet tables, of crock pots and 9 by 13 cake pans and all this stuff, And I walk in, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be terrible.
Good.
I mean, I'm 20. At the time, I was probably 23, maybe 24. I was 24 when I left, so I was probably in that 23-ish area. I walk in with this lady, and she walks in and goes, attention everybody, this is Greg Robinson, and he's from the IRS, and he's auditing me today.
Oh my God.
Everybody, let's just say conversation stopped. They all looked at me.
And you're red in the face.
I am. And so you go through the line, you get your food, you sit down.
So you actually got to eat.
Oh yeah. and I was very popular.
Really?
Oh yeah, all these old guys came over. Well, my brother-in-law, he's been having trouble with the way he filled out his tax return with his grain and da-da-da-da-da. Oh, it was just... So finally we got done, went back to her house. I told her she owed like two $50 penalties for some 1099s she didn't file that she needed to, and I got the hell out of there, but went back.
Oh my gosh.
There's the strategy.
You felt welcome.
Oh yeah, I was welcome.
That's hilarious.
Couldn't believe it.
Oh.
Fun stuff.
So nobody from the IRS probably made it back to that little town in Kansas for some time, maybe, huh?
No, I'm pretty sure if anybody came up at that point, they looked at it and went, I don't think there's anything wrong with this tax return. We can send this one back. And that's called an office audit or something, where you kind of look at it, fold it up, and send it back. Because your audits back in the day were all generated by or by a computer. They'd score it. So the higher the score, basically the more complicated the tax return. That's when they decided they would kick it out to the field. And so then we would look at it, and then we could decide whether we wanted to audit it or not. We could just pass and send it back. But they keep track of how many you get in and send back.
Oh, wow.
And so the more of those you do, they think you're slacking off. So your manager, your IRS manager will come after you. And if you're not, they say there's no score being kept, but that's a bunch of crap. If you're a guy who never
working out great.
initiates any taxes due, then you must also not be doing your job. So,
Well, other than because I had to drive from North Platte.
so I wasn't necessarily the best auditor, but then again, I was 23 years old and I'm out on my own and really out. I mean, I would go to a CPA firm and the guy would come out in his 3-piece suit, you know, and he does 1,000 tax returns and he's been doing it for 25 years and I'm trying to question how he's doing it. And so, yeah,
Interesting times.
it was an interesting job. I would have kept doing it if I wanted to, but your mom and I wanted to move back to South Dakota.
Right.
And so I went to him and I said, well, there's an opening in South Dakota. And they're like, well, we're not going to let you go. We spend all of our money training you. And I'm like, well, it's the IRS. It's the same company in South Dakota as in Kansas. No, it came from our budget. So I said, well, then I'm leaving. Here's my notice. And so then I got a job up in Western Surety, and I was doing that financial analysis for a year and a half. So I didn't really want to do that. That was one of the jobs you move here to, when they're, just to get back. And then I saw the job for the assistant controller in the paper, and I came in and basically had to ask him, "What's an assistant controller do?" Because I had no really idea.
That was in your interview? I love this position. What do I do?
Yeah, what do I do? And so I loved it. I really did like working at the Argus, and so I worked there for 2.5 years, and then we went to Montana, did that for 7 years, and then came back and retired in November.
For those of you wondering what just happened, Matt, my brother just came in.
I'm just gonna come in here and just sneak in. Hey everybody, Matt Robinson. I'm Dan, nice seeing you.
Hey, everybody, Merry Christmas.
Safe travels.
You going to the gym tomorrow?
Yeah.
What time?
Whatever.
Give me a call before you go or text me.
You heading out?
Yep.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Nice seeing you. Come visit sometime.
We're planning on it this summer.
Are you?
Yeah. We're
That'd be
not
great.
traveling anywhere too wild, so figure we can.
Well, you got a place to stay and
Maybe around-
home base. I guess.
Maybe around Memorial Day.
Huh?
Maybe around Memorial Day.
Yeah, come out Memorial Day and just stay an extra week or so if you want.
Memorial Day. When is that?
Jared's graduation.
Oh.
Well,
I'll be working that.
it might be.
I work the same hours as his teachers.
You might be working.
Yeah.
No, it's good. All right.
We'll plan on
Take
that.
care. All right. Nice seeing you.
You as well.
All right.
See you tomorrow, Matt.
Are you there? Oh yeah.
See ya.
Next one. Bye.
Later. So, speaking of Matt,
Now that he's left,
yeah.
you can talk about him.
Well, I'm just saying, like, we're almost to the point where I can actually get some serious relevance and knowledge out of what you guys have to offer here. You guys decided to have kids at some point here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What made you decide you wanted to have kids, or is it just a natural step in the next thing, or?
Well, we had been married, Gerald and I had been married for 4 years, and we decided it was probably time. I mean, we'd moved back to South Dakota, and we bought a house, and had the job that I thought I would have for a long time at the Argus, and so that just seemed to be the next natural thing to do. And
Gotcha. And then you guys had a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had, I don't know how many years we were married before, we got married in 91. Jared was born 10 years later. And at some point we decided to start trying for kids, and
Yeah.
that was a little challenging. So
Yeah.
Jared was an in vitro child.
Yeah, that's cool. That's so cool. I love that.
So,
yeah.
Yep. And then Eric came 16 months later.
Yeah.
So it was
Started.
just, it was just happened.
Yeah. No, that's
So-
cool. That's super cool. I mean, it sucks that you had to go through it, and how expensive that must have been. But
It's just one of those
Yeah.
things. It's okay. Well, I guess we gotta figure something
Yeah.
out. So
no, I think that's cool. That's super neat.
it wasn't just as simple as that. There's a lot of other things that kind
I'm-
of
yeah,
come along with
I'm
that.
sure.
You can, young couple trying to have kids. There's a lot of stuff that kind of goes along with it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it happened. So Worked out.
Yeah, no, it's cool. You got some cool kids. One that's sitting over there totally ignoring what's going on.
He's a typical teenager.
Yeah, you know. He's fun though. He's fun. Yeah, well, that's cool. So I don't know not much to say with that other than like, because I have a girl, so I'm trying to think of any questions I would have about parenting that have any relevance raising a girl.
They don't give you directions as a parent.
I mean, I've noticed that.
You know that. It's like, and it doesn't get any easier.
I do have a question that's relevant at the moment. Is did I or did Jared, Eric, did they ever have cavities when they were like really little, like with baby teeth?
Well,
Because we literally thought we saw that she had a cavity on one of her molars. We were like, how are we supposed to brush this kid's teeth so efficiently as to avoid a cavity on this kid?
I would say no, but we didn't take you to the dentist a lot when you were really little.
They suggested that we take her when she turned 1. And so we did. And they're like...
We never did.
All they did was they
either.
put their hand in a glove and then they smeared some Flora and they went... All right, she's good.
Yeah.
We'll see you in 6 months. It's like,
No,
okay.
you were a little rambunctious. You went running down the hallway once and tripped on your. I think you had on a one-piece pajama with the footy things, but
Sure,
you didn't
yeah.
have your feet in the footy things, and you got caught up in that and landed with your teeth first into the end table.
Oh, yeah. I
And
remember
you
this.
jammed your teeth right up into your gums and everything. And so we did take you to the dentist for that, and they kind of pulled them down a little bit. But those were they kind of were gray. They never, kind of.
Never quite recovered.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was kind of your dental visit.
Bye. Merry Christmas.
So,
Merry Christmas.
Merry
nice
Christmas.
meeting you.
See you tomorrow.
and then when we went out to Great Falls when you were, I don't know how old you were, 5? I don't really remember how old you were.
It was 1993 that you guys moved out there.
91 when we moved out there.
91.
Yeah.
because we got
But-
married and then Grandpa died and you guys went right
Yeah.
away. Okay.
And but Ryan was. That's when your other teeth were coming in. So you were losing your teeth, and that tooth wouldn't come out. The one that got jammed up there.
okay.
And so they actually went to the dentist, and
I remember this.
he pulled that tooth out.
It's huge.
It was a humongous tooth. I couldn't believe it. It would have never came out. We'd have never gotten it out. It was a adult-sized
adult
tooth, and I don't know whatever. And he just pulled all that out, and I was trying to, well, just be quiet, just be nice, Ryan, or whatever, trying to keep him from throwing a fit, or it was a big deal because you got all these people, and the guy's like yanking on his tooth, and he was like, it wasn't even bothering him at all.
Oh my word.
Count it came.
It was a big tooth.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of little
Hi
ones.
there.
Hey, there's
You want a cameo, little girl? Oh, no. She's got her little bear.
Yep. So.
That bear hasn't had that much attention in years.
So, I do have a question now. Well, we'll try to wrap it up here soonish. I'm curious. I'm curious to know, like, you decided to retire. You're still working. Are you going to retire? Do you want to retire?
Do I want to retire? Yeah, I think I'd want to retire.
So I know, like, with Dad, I don't know if it was something along the lines of, his company that he's working for, the media that you're working for, kind of was going down, and at the same time there were some opportunities for you to get out financially safe, and so because those two kind of worked together, that gave you the opportunity to leave when you did.
Yep, I've always had wanted to retire after 30 years or 55.
Right.
So that was about the right time frame for me. And we were going through a lot of restructure with the media.
Right.
And so this last batch came through, and so everybody was at my level. I'm a regional finance director. So I had responsibilities at a lot of different sites. So I'd travel. One of them was out in Fort Collins, Colorado, so I got to see Dan a lot. The other one was in St. Cloud, Minnesota, so when I lived in Minnesota, I got to see them a lot. So that was great. That worked great for me. But so they were restructuring all this into, there's 31 of us that did this, and they're going to take it down to 25. So a 20% reduction in staff. And so they offered a package, and so that's why I just decided I didn't want to do something different. The job that I would have been doing, rather than having 3 newspapers, I would have had 10. And, you know, I've kind of been down that path before and, you know, had a stroke in the office. So figured maybe the time was right to do something different. So, so as Gerald says, I'm between jobs right now.
I didn't mean to say, I didn't mean to like antagonize you about retirement or anything. I was just
Well, no, I
just
think
genuinely
it's
curious,
something
like,
that you plan. I mean,
like
we've been fortunate because Carrie's been working. She works from home.
okay.
Same job she's had in Minnesota, which was working for she's an accountant for a family company. Why, sweetheart? How are you?
Yeah.
You want to sit up here? You want to go see Grandpa?
Yep.
Go see Grandpa. Nope.
Oh, shit. Ran away.
So I guess, you know, when Eric's still in high school, he'll be in a couple of years.
Oh
so,
yeah, I forget about that.
You know, I'm
Yeah.
thinking 6 or 7 years would be kind of nice
Sure.
to kind of scale
I
things
forget too.
back.
You guys are 4 years apart, so I mean,
So-
it just
4 years apart, but our kids are quite a bit apart because
Yeah.
you're 30 and Jared
Matt
is,
is, how old's Matt?
Matt's 27.
27. And Jared's 17.
Yeah, so there's 10 years.
And Eric's 15. So yeah.
Between our youngest
Or
and his
60
oldest
sorry,
is 10
Eric's
years.
16.
yeah. Well, okay, so fair. I'll take a step back. I'm just curious to know, like, I see your guys' you know you have two different careers but very similar, I guess in nature of business. Numbers? I don't know. Anyway, I'm curious to know like where I should be aiming. Like, how do you know when you're looking to retire, and how do you? I mean, like, or how do you even know that you're doing the job that you want to do? Because I don't know if I'm 100% satisfied with where I'm at, and then ultimately, how do you make that decision to move on to the next thing? I mean, I've switched jobs every 2 years.
Well, I think
My entire career.
Yeah,
I'm 30
well,
years old now.
well, I don't know. I guess by the time I was 30, I worked for the IRS, worked at Western Surety, worked at Argus Leader, and then transferred out to Great Falls. So
Well, you had
there's
quite a
like
bit of
four
change as
different
well.
jobs there too.
Gotcha.
And so you kind of just, all right, well, I think I want to do this, and I want to take on a little bit more responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the opportunity to make a little bit more money. So you just kind of keep
building that
keep
way.
looking forward and looking
Yeah.
for opportunities, and keep doing what you're doing, and you do the best job you can, and just watch out, and pretty soon those opportunities present themselves. I mean, it's just not dissimilar than what you've had. You've had the opportunity to work at some different pharmacy jobs and take it. Oh, now I can move to Sioux Falls, and I mean that's kind of what we did. We moved back to Sioux Falls from Kansas and whatnot. So
Yeah.
you know.
For us, we've been out in Colorado now, 5.5 years, and for the kids, it was probably the best thing. We didn't realize
Really?
that. We didn't realize it was at the time. But
Yeah, I imagine it's
Oh,
hard
it's just-
to move from Minneapolis.
yeah, it's you know, it's. I always wanted to be kind of in a smaller community,
Yeah.
which Loveland is. It's like 60,000 people. But if we want to go do something, we can do it in our own backyard, kind of like you can do here. We have really no reason to go to the big city of Denver. We don't. You know, there's everything we want to do. It's really centered around the kids' lives anyway
That's
right
awesome.
now.
No, that's super cool.
So, I mean,
I always thought it was so impressive that you guys could like live in Minneapolis. I mean, I always loved where you guys lived, but it's always been like overwhelming that someone could live in such a big town like that and do what they to get everything done and all that kind of stuff. It's
I
just
don't
like
know,
a
but
headache.
you know, for us, it was the move was good because it was they were what 5th grade and 7th grade, and Carrie got to keep her job. We found a great church, so they've grown up in that church and they love it.
Yeah, they're doing great things. From
Yeah, and
From what I hear.
and they do. You know, they've got along great in high school. They're both individuals. They're their own people. You know, so that's something that I guess you'll get to experience as a parent.
Can't wait, especially with the attitude my girls got.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, we haven't really talked about, you know, what are we going to do in like 7 or 8 years? We probably aren't going to be doing anything what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And we thought about, well, where do you want to move? Well, we don't know where the kids are going to be.
That's
So
true.
it's kind of like, well, do we want to do something planning that we just want to go somewhere, the two of us, or we want to be around our kids? So it's like, you know what? They've got what, 2 years in high school yet,
Yeah.
and another 4 years in college. Like, let's not worry about it. So we just kind of said,
That's fair.
we like what we're doing. We like the community we're in. We've got lots of friends. We miss family immensely. Don't get me wrong, but it's pretty good.
It's a pretty nice place to live.
It's not a bad place to live.
There's a lot of nice things to do out there.
Yeah, you keep going out there. So, I mean, then you got grandma going out there.
And there's a lot of things. Naturally, there's a lot of things we miss back here. Don't get me wrong. So you're somewhat torn, but you got your
No,
family,
that makes sense.
and then you got your life, and that's what you do.
I just think it's super cool how you can be out in these places. I've got like an anxiety of trying to. I have to be within a certain.
But it's a long day, but it's a day's drive. It's a long day's drive, but it's like
I suppose.
it's not like living on the West Coast or East Coast.
That's true.
It's just and the people are still, it's not Midwest, but it still has the same values and stuff, and that. So it's
That's a
it
comfort
fits us
area.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right. Well, we'll finish up here. It looks like we've been at it for an hour. Is there? I know you just kind of explained like the next decade is kind of looking just whatever happens. Wherever
Things are gonna happen,
go,
and you just
and you're who knows?
Yeah.
It sounds fun. I guess I'm curious about maybe what's some things you want to leave for me and Rochelle or something on this, or is there something that maybe I don't know. I've never ended one of these like this.
Well, it's hard to,
Or is there,
say what advice do you give somebody, and I guess you just have to be true to yourself and true to your values, and love the person you're with all the time. That's really simple. It's not. Life's not that difficult. We make it difficult, but it's really not.
some of the challenge I know as you mature as a couple and everything it's patience. Your patience gets tried with each other, with your family, people around you, and you take a look at it and say, I just, to your dad's point, just be yourself, be there for each other, and hold true to your values. So you'll do just fine.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Did you enjoy this?
Yeah.
That was fun.
I feel like we almost need a part 2 at some point. I think we breezed over everything so much. But no, thank you very much. That's cool. That's cool.
It was good. Thank you for asking.